On December 17th, 1903, two brothers, Wilbur and Orville Wright, dragged a strange contraption onto the beach at Kill Devil Hills. After a coin toss, Orville climbed into what was called the Wright Flyer, and at 10:35 a.m. engaged a 12 horsepower engine, and then flew for 12 seconds and 37 meters into a freezing headwind of 43 kilometers an hour. Powered flight had become a reality. By the end of the day, they had reached 60 meters of travel for 59 seconds at an altitude of 3 meters. Heavier than air powered flight was officially a reality, but progress was slow. It was 5 years later before they carried their first passenger, but after that, things sped on. Barely 5 years later, planes became an essential part of World War I for reconnaissance, and soon after as part of the arsenal of the world's militaries. Over the next few decades, technology developed at a rapid pace. Planes got bigger, faster, and increased their range. Airlines were formed and airfields became airports. Flight paths crisscrossed the skies and people could be anywhere in the world in less than 24 hours. In less than 70 years, man walked on the moon. The Wrights were literal tech bros, but that term has come to mean a form of hyper-masculinity associated with notable men in the tech industry who assert themselves through their business or perceive superior knowledge and vision of how the world works and should work. It's used as both a compliment and an insult, but mostly as an insult. Often they are leaders of companies rather than the technicians doing the donkey work or even coming up with the ideas. They stand on stage and present the latest products and services with the authority of inventors, relying on the general ignorance of the assembled masses of acolytes, fanboys, and journalists to not ask difficult questions. They are worshipped as visionaries to be looked up to and emulated in both substance and surface, even if their claims are bogus and status undeserved. Their ideas are viewed with the ultimate rose-tinted glasses, bringing together their obsessive fan bases to drool over the genius of the solutions that are claimed to be able to change the world. It doesn't matter how realistic they are, or how many independent experts raise their hands and point out the flaws. These people will defend the ideas to the hilt, regardless of the evidence handed to them on a plate by people who know better. Their god of solutions says it's the way, and they have faith. Their best defense is always the same. Well, they said the Wright brothers couldn't do it, or something to that effect. It's the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card for any fanboy who has wedded themselves to the belief that anything is possible if you put your mind to it. Basic laws of physics don't matter, mainly because they don't understand them. It's a logical fallacy called the association fallacy, which asserts that the properties of one thing must also be the properties of another thing if both belong to the same group. A specific version of this is called Galileo's Gambit, where those denying well-established scientific or historical propositions will state that while their non-mainstream views provoke ridicule and rejection now, they will be proved right eventually. After all, Galileo was not believed when he said the Earth orbits the Sun at the time, but then he was proved right. In recent years, the upper echelons of tech brownness have ramped up their speculation, led by the Lord Most High, Elon Musk. Not content with making electric cars a mainstream reality, which is a significant achievement for sure, he has decided he needs to change the world, and over the years has proposed numerous wild and left-field solutions to the world's problems, mainly in transportation. The Hyperloop is his most famous. It's an alternative to high-speed rail, where the trains float on electromagnets and zip through hundreds of miles of vacuum tubes at speeds that rival transcontinental airliners. The white paper set out the initial technical specs, and for years SpaceX championed the idea with design competitions and numerous revisions to finesse the idea. It didn't take long for naysayers to pop up and explain, with the most basic understanding of engineering and physics, that the whole concept was a non-starter. It wasn't even Musk's idea. It's been a staple of science fiction since the early 20th century, when Robert Goddard conceived the idea in 1904. That didn't matter though. Musk thought of it, and that was that. No matter how many experts piped up to demonstrate such basic problems as how to create a reliable and sufficient vacuum in 100 kilometers of tubing, or its vulnerability to sabotage and the catastrophic results, supporters could not be swayed. And one of the most common defenses was that everyone dismissed the Wright brothers. It's a very bad argument, used as a hand wave to dismiss any argument they can't truly counter. Another one is, these problems can be solved with enough, etc., 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 but it's the Wright brothers that is their biggest shield. The problem is, it's completely invalid. From what I can find, the Wright brothers were not widely dismissed, mocked, or disbelieved at the time. Human flight was already a thing, and I don't mean with hot air balloons. The concept of a fixed-wing craft was first proposed in 1799, and Otto Lilienthal was the first to make regular, well-documented flights using gliders. There were a number of pioneers working on their own craft, such as Giffard, Schwartz, and Santos-Dumont, and there are competing claims to being the first to achieve powered flight. Even the US government gave support to the brothers, though it seems most of it wasn't very useful. It's a simple fact that among people in the know at the time, powered flight was not some fanciful dreamy nonsense. It was a demonstrable possibility based on well understood physics that just needed the correct application. The only real detraction was directed at the Wright brothers' specific craft, and that they weren't qualified engineers. Scientists already had a good understanding of aerodynamics, starting with Newton in 1726 and his work on air resistance, through the work of Bernoulli in 1738 and Euler in 1757, all the way to Cayley's identification of the four aerodynamic forces of flight in 1799: lift, weight, drag, and thrust. It took over 100 years to get the basics right, but once that line was crossed, the floodgates opened. There was skepticism for sure, but among experts there wasn't widespread denial of the possibility. But, like the myth of Columbus proving the earth was round, the Wright brothers have unintentionally acquired a mythical status of two renegades fighting against the mainstream science establishment with their closed minds and one-dimensional orthodox thinking. Now they're used as a cover for any wild technological and engineering claims. In 1990, Mike Godwin posited his law of analogies. The law states, as an online discussion grows longer, the probability of a comparison involving Nazis or Hitler approaches 1. Originally directed at Usenet groups, it has since been applied to all forums for discussion where reductio ad Hitlerum commonly occurs. It's arguably the most well-known criticism of arguments in the modern world of social media, where attempts to invalidate a position are made by pointing out that the Nazis believed it, or did it. I believe that the Wright brothers provide a similar function when it comes to wild tech ideas. I must suggest things like the Hyperloop, his over-engineered tunnels, his hypothetical possibilities for Neuralink, and interstellar travel using Starship. Critics are dismissed with a verbal handwave by bringing up the unsubstantiated claims that everyone said the Wright brothers would fail, that no one believed power flight was possible, but they succeeded, and so can the so-called visionaries of today. I posit that the more wild, unrealistic, and unreasonable a proposed technology and engineering claim is, the more likely and more often it is that supporters will bring up the Wright brothers. Like bringing up Hitler to criticize someone's support for something like animal rights, dismissing criticism of ideas by saying, yeah, but the Wright brothers, is lazy, boring, unimaginative, and just plain wrong. There's no substance to it. It's not an argument. It's a dismal gainsaying because the person doesn't have a true counter. It's a way for the person to feel good about themselves, to feel positive and useful in the debate without contributing anything worthwhile. Tech bros are the new rock stars. They are adored by devoted fans who are unwavering in their support for and belief in the dreams and intellect of these visionaries. Their masses of followers hang on their every word and take no truck with dissent, and their greatest shields are the original brothers, who have unwittingly become the gods of defeating the disbelievers. The reality, though, is much more mundane.